Okay, at this time, a special recognition presentation by the Rockdale Water Resources Historical Report. Mr. Dwight Wicks and delegates reporting.
Evening, Chairman, Commissioners. Dwight Wicks, Director of Rockdale Water Resources. And this evening, as I've done on an annual basis, I come to you with, to give you the annual report for Rockdale Water Resources. Only this year, I'm doing a 3-year summary report that captures the progress that has been made under my direction for the years 2008 through 2011. One of the charges when I first came here, there were several charges. One was that RWR was going bankrupt. The other one that RWR had poor customer service. Nobody answered the phone. We had a ton of complaints. Very inefficient operation. We didn't have online bill pay, no services that were 21st century. That we were not collecting the money that we owed, or in essence, our accounts receivable AR was not being managed properly, and that our non-revenue water losses were extremely high. So those were some of the keystone issues that I had to address upon my return in 2009. The plan that I put in place to address these was simple. First of all, we developed a strategic plan. And in that strategic plan, it called for hiring qualified people, qualified personnel. The department was understaffed, so we staffed it with qualified personnel. We did key investments in technology, and we did process improvements using the Ballward's process. So what is the results of that? Let's go to the screen here, and we'll start out. Now, first of all, you should have 2 handouts in front of you. One is actually the presentation, which the public will see on the screen, and the other is an overall summary. I don't have time to go through the entire overall summary, so I'm just going to hit the high points as listed on the screen. And the first that you see up here, addressing the financial standpoint. And what you see here, my last year here, as you recall, my employment had a gap in it. The year 2008. My last year here was 2007. I was not here in 2008, and then I returned again in 2008, 9, 10, and 11. So you have 2007 as a base year, a reference year of the last year that I was here. So when we look at the total operating revenues, this is the total amount of money that we took in. And you can see the trend from 2007 when I was here, 21 million. When I left, it dipped to 19.8 million, and then it's been on a steady climb for the last 3 years. The net income is after we paid all our bills. How much money do we have left? When I was last year in 2007, you can see it's just barely, it's 0.0161 or 161,000. That was the net income that we had managed to scrape out at the end of 2007. When I left in 2008, we lost over $5 million, 5.3 million. I returned in 2009. You can see that we lost 2.4 million in 2009. We lost 1.35 million in 2010. And last year, we came out in the black. We're just barely, we made $61,000 after we had paid everything. So we're on the right track. Next slide, please. Net assets. In looking at our net assets, you can see that we've had a steady decline. Beginning in 2007 was the last year that our assets did not decline. Why are our assets declining? It's because we've been living off of developer contributions. SPLOST has helped slow the trend, but basically our assets were being buoyed by developer contributions. They were putting new pipe in the ground, and that was counting toward us as net assets. And it actually wasn't replacement assets. It was new, primarily sewer lines and some water lines. And you can see the steady decline in developer contributions, and you can see this corresponding decline from 2007 through continuing through 2011 in the total assets of the system. Let's go to the next slide. When we look at delinquent accounts, the accounts receivable, in 2007, you can see in the top slide that these are all in millions, that we had over 2.14 million in delinquent accounts when I was last year. When I left, it jumped to 2.58 million. I returned, we got it down to 1.41, and we're currently at less than a million in delinquent accounts, 0.988 as of 2012. When we look at the customer calls that have been answered, we put technology in place. We've got a call center. We've hired a couple more people, and you can see that the number of calls that we have answered has steadily climbed. In 2010, it was 74%. 2011, 78% of the calls are answered. In 2012, 86% of the calls are being answered. Let's go to the next
Can I ask you a couple questions about
this?
Yes,
ma'am.
So on the top slide for delinquent accounts, in 2010 you have 2.5 million, and you have an asterisk next to that. What does that denote?
During 2010, we were in the process of implementing our Rockdale software. So we weren't able to aggressively pursue delinquent accounts. Okay. So they grew during that year. So okay. After that, we were able to
And then on the
that.
Next slide, you put the percentage of customer calls answered.
Yes.
Does that mean when they called and you didn't have to return back to them?
We got to them. The calls didn't get dropped. So
they didn't get frustrated and hung
up. That's
okay.
correct.
All right. Very good. Okay. And how do you monitor that?
We keep tally. We've got a system in that we can keep tally of the number of calls coming in and the number that I think it's actually in the software that allows us to do that. Okay. You get the total number that's it's called in and the total number that we're able to answer.
Okay.
That's one of the technology features that's been added. And we also have the ability to record calls. And the complaints have dropped drastically since we started recording the calls.
Good idea.
Okay, next slide. Okay, and in regard to water loss, non-revenue water loss, this refers to leakage in the system, in the distribution system. We haven't been tracking this very long, so I only have data reported here for 2011 and 2012. We're required by the state to track and implement a water loss program, and we've started tracking this. We've made two major changes. We've implemented pressure zones, and we're also spending money on our high-pressure pump station so we can put the proper amount of pressure in the upper part of the county and in the lower part of the county. You can see already this, the changes that we put in place have reduced the non-revenue or unbilled water from 36% down to 27.9%.
What's a realistic goal here in non-revenue waters?
We would like to see it at about 17-18% because you're going to have some non-revenue water from the standpoint of routine operations. You have your flushing, you have your firefighting, you have your line cleanings, and so you're going to generate some non-revenue water. Not everything that you put in the system is going to be accounted for. So I think if we could get down somewhere between 15-17%, we would be good. What they used to call unaccounted for water, 10% or under used to be the benchmark for that, but that's a little different from non-revenue water.
What's the actual number of ratepayers do we have, Mr. Wicks?
We've got 25,000, roughly about 25,000 customers on water and about 11,000 on sewer. Okay.
And can you tell us, do you have a financial amount that would be tied to your non-revenue water loss? I guess
no.
The discrepancy between your realistic goal and the 27.9%?
We don't have a number tied to it because on non-revenue water loss, you actually, it depends on where it's being lost. If it's lost at the customer's tap or at the customer service entrance, you count the loss as being the full value of what you're charging. If it's lost within the distribution system and not at their service tap, you can only count the loss of what it costs you to produce the water and transport it. to that point, because it may not have gotten sold. So you can't assume the sale.
That makes sense.
So we can only account for or use the net amount of the money charged for a gallon, 1,000 gallons of water if it's at the customer's service tap where the water's lost. And that's one of the reasons why we're attacking that first. It's the most valued point. It brings more money to us in terms of repairs.
Mr. Wicks, you mentioned Cogsdale just a moment ago. What percentage of the Cogsdale software program has been implemented? I've had some concerns about Cogsdale. There's so much chatter about them in the beginning. Where are we? Are we at?
Cogsdale is fully implemented.
100%.
100%. To the tune that with the aid of Cogsdale, we captured almost $1 million in additional revenue from delinquent accounts, staying current on our billings. And we had only expected to get in about $300,000. So that's part of the revenue that you see that's coming in that's enabled us to climb into the black, finally.
What would you say have been the number one factor that has contributed to gaining some of that delinquent account money that was out there? I think you had an issue where a collection agency was going after some of it, and we were sending out some letters from the county. Mm-hmm. What do you think was the main thing to bring that in and capture some of that money that was just out there that folks didn't pay the county for the bills or what have you?
Getting a good management system, a good billing system, a good tracking system where we could keep track of the accounts, and then having people to follow up on it.
Is that third party or is it internal?
Part of it is third party. When the older it gets, I think after it gets out to 151 days plus, we outsource it.
Right.
But we collect from 21 up to about 90 to 120 days past due. We do that ourselves. And I think that's the last slide. Is that correct? Up there. If you will refer back to, we got one last thing to bring to your attention. If you'll go to the historical performance, I'd like for you to turn to page 5. It's page 5 and page 6. On page 5, you will see more than just the 2008 through 2011 summary. You'll see a summary going back all the way from 2001 through 2011. And with the exception of the 2011 results, these are audited results from the statement of revenue, expenses, and changes in net fund assets. And what I call to your attention now, the copy that you have, you can see that from the year 2001 through 2004, it's in blue highlight. Those are the years that I was not here. 2005 through 2007, I was here, and then 2009 through 2011, I was here. So you can see the difference in the performance results that the team was able to deliver prior to 2008 and after 2008. And 2008 was probably, from a standpoint, financial standpoint, probably one of our worst performing years that we had on record. If you look at page 6.
Dwight, before you go to page 6, on page 5, the acronym CCR fees.
Yes.
Could you please briefly explain what CCR means?
I certainly will, and thank you for pointing that out. Capital cost contributions. These are fees that are paid by developers. It's a fee that we charge for a developer to connect onto either the sewer line or to the water line. And these fees were high during the period of growth. And you can see that from the standpoint of looking at the operating income and CCR fees, we were basically living off our operating income was being generated by our CCR fees. They were also what was helping to buoy, in this particular case, the contributions to the CCR fees. There are two different things. We have a CCR fee, which is a cash fee, and then the capital cost contribution is a non-cash fee. It's what they put in the ground. So that column that you see over to the right is the capital cost contribution. That's pipe that's and infrastructure that's in the ground. CCR was actually cash contributions. And you can see that the cash contributions are almost as high as the operating income. They were directly contributing to that. So we weren't standing on our own until, if you look down at 2009, you can see that the capital cost contributions have gone down. They've almost disappeared. But our operating income has continued to grow. And this has grown with only one rate increase in 3 years, but we have still continued to grow our revenue.
Prior to that 3 years ago rate increase, how long had it been before we had a rate increase?
It had been beyond 10 years.
Over 10 years?
Yes, beyond 10 years, having a rate increase. And on page 6, you can see the same thing. Again, for the years 2001 through 2004, you see sales, our total operating expenses, CCR revenue, and total operating revenue, and then the operating revenue with the CCR fees removed. And that's a summary of this is on the front page. There's more information in this summary than I have time to present tonight, but I wanted to touch primarily on the financials and tell you that the system that we put in place is working. We've still got to address the net assets as they continue to fall because of the fall off in the capital cost contributions. But we certainly got the ship turned around, and for the first time we were able to pay all of our expenses and have a little bit left in the black. Not enough to cover all of the assets that are depreciating, but enough to cover all of our operating expenses.
Now, will your performance report be on our website to link to your organization?
It certainly will.
Okay.
It certainly will.
I have to say, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Wicks, that I certainly do appreciate this report. I have to tell you that this is very clean, crisp, seemed to be very detailed to the point in terms of the way you delivered the information and presented it. You also gave us it seems to be a very clear breakdown over the last 3 years, and I think it was important, very important, that you highlighted and identified the gap in your service and your tenure with the county, because it clearly illustrates what took place before as well as the after, and the after is right now.
That's
so
correct.
This was a really good, this was quite informative and educational because it gives us an opportunity to really look at a tracking system. I was particularly interested when I asked about Cogsdale. All of you have to remember there was so much discussion about the Cogsdale system, it being properly implemented prior to this administration, and at some point appearing to lie dormant until you came back on board, and there was a push, a big effort with some of the talent that you brought on board, and I know with what you've done with Mr. Ford and Dr. Gibbs being a part of the team. So I have to say hats off to you and your team, and I certainly do appreciate this report this evening.
Thank you. Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Is that it, Mr. Wicks?
That's it.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your input, presentation. At this time, Commissioners, you